Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 28th Plymouth Select Board meeting. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, I am going to turn this meeting over to Chief Foley for a promotion of one of our firefighters.
Thank you very much for having us back here tonight. I appreciate Madam Chairwoman for allowing us to come and share this wonderful celebration and achievement of these three gentlemen that come before you tonight to be formally recognized for their hard work and dedication that led to the promotions that we're going to solidify tonight. If you see us coming in, we were kind of in a little bit of a bustle. Some of us were getting ready as we were coming through the door. I just think it's very timely to recognize that two of the people that are going to be recognized for their promotions tonight were actually on duty. And we had a very technical rescue that had to be performed down in the Manaman area just a short time ago. Newly promoted Lieutenant Jay Hoffa was down there, assisted with that rescue, and I'm happy to say that the occupant of that vehicle was safely extricated and transported to the hospital and is expected to be okay. So, really. So obviously, this brings me to the hard work and dedication that does come with this night. It's not an easy task. The promotion process is long. The study habits have to be on point. There is an immense amount of material that these people need to study to be able to gain the knowledge that will allow them to take the next step forward in their careers. And really, that can't happen without the support of the people around them, their coworkers, their family, a lot of which are here tonight assisting them. And I think it really brings to light that our profession isn't one that we walk through alone. We show up on scene. We show up as a group. We act as a group. And we support each other. And these people will be the leaders of those groups that are going to effectively make the rescues like I explained to you earlier. Especially now with the ever-changing role of the fire service, these officers are going to be challenged with more and more as the challenges of the fire service continue to grow. And I just want to say that I'm very proud of these three individuals. I'm happy to see they're getting their promotions. And I look forward to what they're going to be able to provide, not only the fire department, but our community in the future. So thank you very much. I'd like to get right into it. And the first promotion is going to be the promotion of Jay Hoffa. He is being promoted from firefighter to lieutenant. Jay, could you and your family and the person that's going to be pinning you, please step forward to the front. Right in front, right there. And at this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to our town clerk, who will be doing the swearing in.
Turn and look at me and raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Jason Hoffer,
I, Jason Hoffer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
and affirm
and affirm
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties that come upon me
as a lieutenant
as a lieutenant
of the fire department
of the fire department
for the town of Plymouth,
for the town of Plymouth,
according to the best of my abilities
according to the best of my abilities
and understanding,
and understanding,
agreeably to the rules and regulations
agreeably to the rules and
of
regulations
the Constitution
of the Constitution
and the laws of the Commonwealth.
and the laws of the Commonwealth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I promise to impart
I promise to impart
to my professional standards
to my professional standards
of quality and integrity,
of quality and integrity,
so that the conduct of the affairs
so the conduct of the affairs
of the department
of the department
shall be above reproach
should be above reproach
and merit public confidence in the department.
and merit public confidence in the department.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
And pinning Lieutenant Hoffer is going to be his father, Dennis Hoffer. And while Mr. Hoffer is pinning his son, I'd like to read a little bit about Lieutenant Jason Hoffer. Lieutenant Hoffer is a graduate of the Plymouth North High School. He served as a search and rescue swimmer in the U.S. Navy. He worked as an EMT at the Brockton Hospital, in Brockton, and then as emergency room technician at the Bethersville Deaconess. Lieutenant Hoffer was appointed to the Plymouth Fire Department November 10th, 2009. He earned his Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, Hazardous Materials First Responder Operational Level certifications, and is a member of the Plymouth Dive Team. Lieutenant Hoffer has been assigned to Group 1, Station 1, Engine 1. His achievement today has been made possible with the support of his wife, Courtney, his son, Aiden, and his daughters, Annabelle and Averly.
Thank you.
Keith McDonald, Lieutenant Keith McDonald, being promoted to captain. Please step forward with your family, please. And Kelly, thank you.
I got to practice, how about you? Raise your right hand. I, Keith McDonald,
I, Keith McDonald,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
and affirm
and affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a captain of the fire department
as a captain of the fire department
for the town of Plymouth,
for the town of Plymouth,
according to the best of my abilities
according to the best of my abilities
and understanding,
and understanding,
agreeably to the rules and regulations
agreeably to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution
of the Constitution
and the laws of the Commonwealth,
and the laws of the Commonwealth.
so help me God.
So help me God.
I promise to impart
I promise to impart
to my professional standards
to my professional standards
of quality and integrity,
of quality and integrity,
so that the conduct of the affairs
so the conduct of the affairs
of the department
of the department
shall be above reproach
shall be above reproach
and merit public confidence in the department.
and merit public confidence in the department.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Captain McDonald will be pinned by his father, Richard McDonald. Captain McDonald worked for a private security firm at the nuclear power plant and spent 5 years in the industrial fire brigade at the power plant before being appointed to the Plymouth Fire Department on August 12, 2002. He was promoted to lieutenant on March 5, 2018. Captain McDonald has earned his Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, Hazardous Materials First Responder Operational Level, Fire Instructor 1, Fire Instructor 1, Fire Officer 1, Fire Officer 2, and his Technical Rescuer certifications. He is an instructor at the Massachusetts Fire Academy, a member of the Plymouth County Technical Rescue Team, and is a member of FEMA's Urban Search and Rescue Unit. Captain McDonald has been assigned to Group 1, Station 1, Tower 1. Nice job, Cap. Lieutenant Jason Pierce being promoted to captain. Please step forward with your family. Good to see you up there, Cap.
Raise your right hand. I, Jason Pierce,
I, Jason Pierce,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
and affirm
and affirm
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties
all the duties
incumbent upon me
incumbent upon me
as a captain of the fire department
as a captain of the fire department
for the town of Plymouth,
for the town of Plymouth,
according to the best of my abilities
according to the best of my abilities
and understanding,
and understanding,
agreeably to the rules
agreeably to the rules
and regulations
and regulations
of the Constitution
of the Constitution
and the laws of the Commonwealth,
and the laws of the Commonwealth,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I promise to impart
I promise to impart
to my professional standards
to my professional standards
of quality and integrity,
of quality and integrity,
so that the conduct
so that as the conduct
of the affairs
of the affairs
of the department
of the department
shall be above reproach
to be above reproach
and merit public confidence
and merit public confidence
in the department.
in the department.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Captain Pierce's wife, Jessica, will be pinning him. Captain Pierce is a graduate of the Silver Lake Regional High School. He went on to serve in the United States Marine Corps, where he was a decorated veteran. Captain Pierce was appointed to the Plymouth Fire Department on October 22nd, 2001. He has earned his Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, Driver Operator, Pump Operator, Driver Operator Aerial certifications, and is the Assistant Dive Master of our dive rescue team. He was promoted to lieutenant on June 1st, 2007. Captain Pierce is assigned as the station commander, Station 3 Pine Hills. His achievement was made possible with the support of his wife Jessica and his sons Joshua and Jason.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for the opportunity to come before you tonight and publicly share our achievements. I really look forward to seeing what these gentlemen are going to do to help bring us forward into the future with our department. It's an exciting time. There's a lot of changes going on with our community, and I know that these men, as well as the people in the back of the room that came here to observe as from the fire department, are going to do great things in the future and be able to move us forward and keep our community safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Foley, and congratulations to everyone. We're going to take a 5-minute break so you guys can take some nice pictures with your family and not have to be rushed around, so thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Tiff. Welcome back, everyone. And we are back into open session, and I'm going to just move the agenda around a little bit because we have a polar bear that looks like it's going to pass out. So we're going to let her come up, and her partners, his partners, actually, I don't know if it's a he or a she, its partners, so. The partners.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi there, my name is Catherine McKenna, and I'm here on behalf of the Jordan Hospital Club Polar Plunge Committee, along with Jordan and, of course, Jan Rushforth. And we just want to come and thank you so much for the town's really unending top-down support of this event. So this was our 21st year, and since day one, the select board, let me rephrase that, the select board, the managers, the assistant managers, every single town department, whether that be the fire, the police, EMTs, the DPW, the harbor master and his department, have all come together to just rally around this event, this really terrific community event that raises money for BID Plymouth Cancer Center. So this year, because of the generosity of so many of our sponsors and our plungers, their donors, raised over $90,000 for the Polar Plunge. And I also want to say the Visitors Service Bureau was always very supportive of this function too. So Jordan wants to thank you, as does Jan Rushforth. And we hope next year, go ahead, Jan.
Of course, you know, the weather this year was a little iffy, so we have a guarantee from our wonderful gentleman over here that they definitely will take the plunge next year. But we do have a little thank you things for them. Here's your towels for next year to dry off. We want to make sure that all three of you have your towels. And a little reminder for the third floor every day. You can leave that picture right in the lobby.
Fourth floor.
Fourth floor. I guess it moved since Dave was here. So, for the fourth floor. These guys were great. And Derek was supposed to be playing Soldier someplace in New Hampshire. And he's down here. He's like, just let me dive in so that I got to get up to New Hampshire. We're like, no, the harbor master said you can't. They were wonderful. They came back to the after party with all of the young people, and they did a fantastic job. And we also have a little something for Selectman Quinto, because he is constantly over and above generous to this cause. So we have a little thank you for you.
How sweet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wonderful. Nice.
And that's just to keep you warm next year, Dickie. Oh, and one more thing. I understand that Mr. Hartman from the planning department has said he would love to join your team. So you put him right on there.
And we'd love to have Mr. Hartman.
We thank you again for everything that everyone in the town has done. It's made it successful, and we're so pleased with the result. Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
I want to say thank you very much for the jacket, and I'm going to wear it with pride, believe me.
I know
And
that you will, and we'll see
I
you.
also said to you that day, I asked what the record was, and you had said 16,000. So I'm setting my sights and my goals on raising $16,020 for next year. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I'm going to ask everybody.
We love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Okay. We have a couple public hearings that we have to move forward on. Oh, actually, is there any more? I know that Project Arts, I know that you guys wanted, go ahead up, and then we'll move right into the agenda.
Thank you. I'm Pat McCarthy, and I'm here on behalf of part of our Project Arts Board who is here tonight. And I just want to thank all of you in the town of Plymouth for all the warmth and prayers that you have all shown our beloved Mike Landers. And Mike is coming home. And we just want to invite all of you and all of you out there to our fundraiser event Friday night, this Friday night, 6 to 11 at Memorial Hall. And the tickets will be available at the door or online at projectarts.com. Mike continues to make a lot of good progress from his stroke that he suffered 2 days after Fall Town meeting, but it's a long road to recovery. He has given so much to the arts community and the town as a town meeting member over the years. Currently he is the vice chair of the Committee of Precinct Chairs. He has been honored as a Paul Harris Fellow Rotary Award recipient and an OCM Person of the Year. So many in the community have shown support so far. We just thank all of you. I just have a couple of highlights, and I know I have a couple minutes. In 1995, Project Arts of Plymouth was founded in partnership with Mike Landers and a few of his colleagues. It's a nonprofit organization with a mission to promote local arts and entertainment for free. Landers and his team have produced free concerts and festivals over the past 27 years. Mike, in the local arts community, is known as Mayor Mike. He suffered, as you know, as I said, a major stroke. The stroke left him paralyzed on his right side, unable to speak, swallow, or walk. After a long stay in rehabilitation, he is coming home. He is doing well with his mobility, but he still has a lot of issues that he has to work on. He's learned to play his harmonica with his left hand, even though he is right-handed. He has been in music therapy at Wingate over the last couple of months, and that has been marvelous for him. For over 47 years, Mike also has volunteered and produced events for the Muscular Dystrophy Association, raising thousands of dollars for that organization. He served on the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce's Industrial Development, Tourism, and Plymouth Summer Festival committees, and served on the Summer Street Skate Park Committee and the Plymouth Cultural Council. Emily Clark, who's a longstanding friend of Mike's, mentioned in her article that was in the OCM last week that he's the guy who quietly sacrifices and does the right thing, helping people live happier lives, helping people feel more loved every single day of his life. We hope you can join us Friday night for a lot of fun, raffles, music, and a good time. And thank you so much for all of your support. And I just would like to introduce briefly some of members of our board. Jan Bridge, who is our excellent PR person, and you may have seen her on TV recently on some of the local shows. She's going to get an Emmy soon. And Peter Pederzani, Donna Osborne, and Robbie Haig. And we thank you, and we thank you all your support. And thank you for letting us speak.
Betty.
Thank-
Hey, Pat, before you leave, I just, if Mike Landers was here, I think I can speak for Mike right now, that it's his organization, Project Arts, he'll tell you he can't do it alone. It's a fantastic organization that he has that volunteers hundreds of hours to make this thing work. And this group, they love you, Mike, and they're putting this on. In fact, I'm honored to be one of the volunteers as Vice Chairman
Dickey.
Quintal. I got him involved, we're honored to do that. If anybody doesn't know what Project Arts does, then they don't hang around Plymouth much, because Wednesday night free concerts, it's a great time. It really helps the tourism, which helps all the businesses in the downtown and waterfront area. But Mike, I know Mike appreciates everything that you're doing for him, and it's going to be a great event that's 6 to 11. It's this Friday night at Memorial Hall, so hopefully everybody comes down there, okay? And we have a lot of restaurants. There's a bunch of restaurants that have donated food for that, so I won't name them, but
And just
because they're not looking for that.
By
Okay?
the way, all of our concerts are scheduled for the summer, starting at the end of June. The 10 concerts, our sound person, Ed McGee, has been wonderful in helping organize all of those concerts, and we're working things out with DCR as usual. Thank you.
We'll see you Friday night. See you Friday night.
Thank you. Okay. Our first public hearing, well, let me just tell you that the Select Board has been in executive session since 4:30. At the end of this meeting, we will go back into executive session. So we're going to try and move this along quickly. Our first public hearing is Farmer Brewery pouring permit. New Dirty Water Distillery LLC doing business as Lama Nama Beer Labs, 49 Cottage Park Circle, Bay 2, Petrus Avazonis Jr., PhD, manager. We have anyone that wants to speak to that? Anyone in favor? Anyone opposed? Back to the board. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Second. A motion by Mr. Bletcher. Yeah, that one. Mr. Bletcher, seconded by Mr. Quinzel. Discussion. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations. The next public hearing is Farmer Distillery pouring permit, and it is new. Dirty Water Distillery LLC, doing business as Llama Nama Beer Labs, 49 Cottage Park Circle,
I
Bay
think there may be a
2.
double. Yeah.
There should be one for the distillery and one for the brewery. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, 601, 602.
It's the same information.
Yeah, it's the same information.
No, it's not. It says farmer brewery pouring permit and then farmer distillery pouring permit.
That's what I was reading.
Yeah, we're on
The second one.
We're on the distillery,
Right,
right.
yeah, it's new.
It's new and it's not the same as the one we just voted on.
All those in favor, discussion, and all those in favor? Great. Congratulations again. Public hearing, alteration of premises, Legacy Hospitality LLC, doing business as Brewster Bar, 46 Court Street, holder of an all-alcohol restaurant license, Michael York, manager. Is there anyone like to speak in favor? Anyone like to speak against? Back to the board, do we have a motion?
Second.
Approval by Mr. Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Quintal. All those in favor? It's unanimous, congratulations. Next is public comments. Are there any public comments? Oh,
We have something from marshland.
oh,
Yeah.
why is oh, okay. Hold on a minute, Steve. Steve, hold on. Next public hearing is alteration of premises, Marshland Group LLC, doing business as Marshland 3A, holder of an all-alcohol restaurant license, 986 State Road, Martin Finch, manager. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Opposed? Back to the board. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Approved by Mr. Quintal, seconded by Mr. Helm. All those in favor? Unanimous. Congratulations. Now we'll go to public comment.
Thank you. Steve Lyden. Months ago, there was a committee formed on the Symes House where they were looking for a 501(c) to run the building, or has there any been progress with that, or are we still standing still on it? Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Next are licenses and administrative notes. Has the board reviewed all the licenses and administrative notes? And if they have no issues, I'd look for a motion to move as a group.
So motion.
Motion by Mr. Helm. Second by Mr. Bletzer. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Okay, now there's application for Renew America School Grant, Plymouth South Elementary School, Dr. Chris Campbell, Christina Renaud, Tiffany Park, and Mark Reel.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us this evening. So thank you for having me again. I was here a couple of weeks ago about a different project related, I think, regarding sort of the significant capital needs we have in our community, particularly around some of our schools. We have significant needs, as you know, and we're also very realistic about the availability of funds for projects. So we're trying to be very mindful of that. We're using a lot of ESSER funds to renovate and renew some of our buildings, but we also have this wonderful opportunity to seek additional funding through the Department of Energy, which would be a significant project for South Elementary School. And I just want to thank Christina Renaud, Tiffany Park, and Mark Reel for really doing the heavy work on this. I'm just here to support them. This has been a wonderful collaboration and would really bring a project to Plymouth and to South Plymouth that would not only eliminate the need for significant funding from the town, but would complete a project that really, I feel, fits with the goals of this community in terms of energy and sustainability. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Christina, and she'll start this presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for your time. If we could move a slide forward. And I do know that Dr. Campbell did briefly broach this the last meeting. I'd like to speak to the technical end of what this project is looking to complete, and then Tiffany Parks will talk to some of the grant process that we are currently going through and that we seek to go through in the future as we move this forward, hopefully with all of the member support. So essentially this project will really reinstitute a solid building envelope at South Elementary by repairing the wall panels, replacing the windows, and adding a combination of window repairs and, roof repairs and replacements. That addresses the envelope. From there, we're looking to complete the required ADA upgrades to bring the building to code as would be necessary with this amount of work. And then from the mechanical and HVAC side, the lion's share of the project would be a geothermal install, which would either go underneath an athletic field or underneath a parking lot area to feed a new set of mechanical systems on the roof, which align with energy efficient heat pump style, larger heat pump style that would work with the geothermal system, and along with a solar array and battery system. As you can see, when we add in soft costs, the total estimated cost of this project is almost $22 million. The grant does have a max of a $15 million request. So at this time, we're here to present this to get a preliminary support from the town and from the board to move forward through the application process. And at this moment, we're not necessarily dedicating any funds, but it is the commitment to, if we should get a full grant or even a partial grant, to work through the grant negotiation process, which comes at the end of the award, if we should get it, to see how we can support this to move this forward. We could either get a partial award, let's say $500,000, or we could get the whole award, which is close to $15 million, which is what we've asked for at this point. So a couple of other technical things just to bring up before I turn this over to Tiffany is that the goal of this project is to obviously perform the needed maintenance that's already needed at this school, at this site, but it will also make this school a net zero energy school. And it also gives us an option to provide a 24/7 emergency shelter in the south end of town, which can also move forward to other communities that are nearby, not just Plymouth. So more of a countywide goal here too with this. So from the technical end, that's all I have. If you have technical questions, I can take them now. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Tiffany.
Christine, I just have one question. The owner's project manager, what does that entail?
So when you have a project of this size, you'll have project managers that are part of, let's say, the construction piece, but you also have an owner's project manager, which is required at a project of this size through codes, but they're there to represent us, the town, the school, and the project, just to make sure that the bits and pieces that have all stacked up to make this job happen the proper way, the things that we're paying for are being installed, and they're looking at our interests.
No, I understand that, but how many project managers does that 1,730,000?
Well, that's a percentage estimate. So typically, when you estimate for an owner's project manager, you do it off the total of a project. So it's typically around 10% of the total project construction cost. So it could
So
be
it's a
one,
group-
two,
It's a
three.
group of people. I mean,
It
it's
could
not
be a
one-
group of people.
Because I thought it was only like one person that was,
A project of this size, it may be a team.
okay,
Right. It really just depends on the schedule, too.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. It just seemed like a lot, that's all. I was just wondering.
It may be, depending on how the schedule is laid
Okay.
out, but you typically put a 10% cost on an OPM for a project of this size.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, esteemed Select Board. It's always nice to see everyone. Tiffany Park, grant writer. I am super excited to work with Christina and Mark and Chris on this project. I saw this opportunity come up, and the phone rang, and it was Christina, and I picked it up and said, I think I know exactly what you're calling me about. The Renew America's School program is a new program that's funded through the Department of Energy from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. They are dedicating $80 million in this first round of grant applications to this project. We are applying for $15 million of that. So this is going to be an ambitious application process. But we think that it matches really well with this particular project. It will be a very exciting and innovative way to show Plymouth as one of the nation's oldest continuously inhabited communities, that we could actually have a fully net zero school facility and really act as a model for other school systems around the country. So they think this is a pretty exciting project. Again, the program is dedicated to modernizing public school infrastructure, reducing school energy expenditures, and helping public schools lead the way in the nation to solve the climate crisis. We are applying for $14,705,000 towards the total estimated project cost of $21,625,000. This is our estimates right now for the project. We put together a concept paper, which is a required portion. The preliminary concept paper is a required portion of the grant application. So you cannot apply for the full application without first going through the concept paper process. We submitted the concept paper, and the Department of Energy has responded to us that they're encouraging us to apply. So we see this as very encouraging for us to follow through on this process. We recognize that this is an ambitious project. It's got multiple layers to it, and it obviously costs a lot of money. If we have the opportunity to potentially obtain almost $15 million towards the project, we'd like to go for it. But of course, that's going to, rely on some commitments from the town. The project can be spread out. As Christina mentioned, it is a negotiation. If we are invited to negotiate with them for a full award, we can negotiate to spread the project cost over a course of up to 5 years. We can go anywhere from 2 to 5 years to spread that out. But the town would need to commit a level of funding as a match to the project. If we were to be awarded the full $15 million and want to commit to fulfilling the entire project of, roughly over $21 million, that means the town would essentially have to come up with between $6 and $7 million over the course of the project duration. Again, that would be part of the negotiations if our application were to pass muster with the Department of Energy. But that's something that we wanted to run by the Select Board, of course, and get the Select Board's commitment for us to pursue this application and go forward with it. So keep in mind that if we are successful, and again, it's ambitious, we're going up across against school systems across the country of all different sizes and economic needs. But we're encouraged by the Department of Energy's invitation to us to apply now that we've kind of passed that concept paper hurdle. So if the town would like us to pursue the application, a full application, with your vote, we'll do so and submit that by the third week in April. They would come back to us during the summer to tell us whether we're being invited to negotiate with them for an award. And negotiations would take place at some point, ending in September. So if we were ready to begin, if we're lucky enough to be awarded with this, we could potentially start on this project within the next year.
I don't know who would say no to the town of Plymouth.
I agree. I'd like to invite Mark, if you wanted to talk about any of the energy efficiencies or...
I'll say a few words.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mark, I don't know if you know this, but can you just hit on, go into the geothermal system itself, if you know what it is, and just, how far down would the pipes go, and just kind of do you have a baseline of how that works?
The technical part of that, maybe you could answer more than I could.
And to be honest with you, this would be my first geothermal project ever. I have reached out to a woman named Tracy Ogden, who is a very experienced, probably the most experienced in the state with installing the geothermal projects. Worked with her through the site, and she feels confident it's a good site for geothermal. Several hundred feet is about the answer I could give you, because it really depends. There'll be a test drill, right, to answer that question for us. I will also say I asked her about 1 million questions trying to debunk this as a real, a real good moving forward. The reality is, and this is, I'm glad I got called up again because it's something I really should have brought up. Geothermal as an energy source and the funding for geothermal as an energy source is not going away. So even if, let's say we don't get an award or a full award, the work that we're doing here absolutely can be applied to grants that will be there in the future.
Okay, so just one follow-up is, you said this site is favorable to geothermal. Is that because of the size of the campus? I think we own, is it 20 acres down there, Chris? Or is it only 10?
Yeah. It's
more than 10.
Yeah.
I think it's 20, okay.
Yeah,
So is
and-
it because of the availability of land, like you couldn't
Yep.
do this at Hedge, correct?
Actually, you could. It's
okay.
actually surprising, as I spoke with Tracy back and forth through a number of phone calls, just how little space you need for geothermal. And it can go under lots, and it can go under athletic fields. I'm more saying that because she's familiar with the geographic area of South Massachusetts, and it's been done in similar geographic locations. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so most of what needs to be said has been said, but I wanted to reiterate that this project really is an innovative project that really matches with the Renew America's Schools grant program. I think it exemplifies the town of Plymouth's commitment to climate resiliency, and the part with this building potentially being a heating and cooling emergency shelter is really critical to this whole project, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for innovation and new ideas. And so it's great to see Plymouth leading on this issue. I really think that any of the work that I've been doing, I've been looking for ways to show that Plymouth is a leader. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this project come to fruition if we are lucky enough to be granted the award, and hope to have your support. Thank you.
Great. We'll bring this back to the board, discussion. Sorry, he has more questions.
All right, so Tiffany or Chris, just with respect to, so I think we all know that we have this backlog of overall all infrastructure, but we know that we have these 8 elementary schools that we're getting to the point where the youngest are almost 50 years old. And I think it's great that you're doing this. But my question is, so we got a DOE, and you're applying for federal grant, and we know that the town's going to have to pony up something. So how does this not dovetail with the model schools in Massachusetts? And is there not the ability to get a funding contribution from them?
You want to take this and I can elaborate?
And I'm assuming you're meaning the MSBA?
Correct.
Right. So you're right, there's a lot of sites to consider. And what is helpful is 2 things. One, that we did the assessment, right, that we did a couple years back. And 2 was the request to put together a 10-year plan for the town, right? So the reality is, we need to just get more creative on how we're going to attack the needs throughout the district. The MSBA, I'll let Chris talk about what we're looking forward to doing a week prior to this particular grant being requested, but the MSBA won't partner this way, so you can't do both. The other thing is the percentage that we're looking for to get back from this project is actually, we'd actually be required to spend less as the town than we would if this were a core project for the MSBA. Well, it's about, if we get the whole grant, it's 66% DOE, 34% Plymouth. With the MSBA, it's about a 50% payback.
With the MSBA? Sure, yeah, and that's great, and I'm okay with that. But my problem is, we have two model high schools that are, one's 5, the other one's 10 or 11 years old. They went through the model school program. We just gave you approval for Cold Spring and Hedge, okay? I think we know what direction that's going in. That qualifies for model school. This is the same thing. You're talking about a $22 million investment, Chris, that you said at the last Zoom meeting we had would take this building out for another extend its life expectancy for another 20 to 30 years, correct? Beyond quote-unquote routine maintenance.
For sure.
So in my opinion, there's something wrong with the program at the state level. If the Fed's pony in 5 to 10, and there's a differential of 10 to 15 million, they should be picking up the 50% of the differential that the Feds don't.
Yeah,
I'm just editorializing here. So
and I would agree with some of the comments that you made, Mr. Mahoney. The MSBA funding has been limited from MSBA. They're funding fewer projects. And currently, the model school program, while they have the model school program, you're not getting the reimbursement points that we did when we got North High School. So the 5 percentage points that we got for the model school at North are no longer given, excuse me, to communities. Just confirmed a few days ago by some of our consultants who have helped us with the SOI process. So this could very well be a model moving forward. There are 2 buildings that were built in the Watertown Public Schools that were not supported by MSBA that are net zero buildings. So, this certainly is, I think, something that down the road may become a model for MSBA, and perhaps there'll be some incentives there, but right now there isn't any financial incentives that the MSBA is giving towards those kind of projects.
okay, thank you.
Well, any other questions? You know what? I'd like to make a motion to approve that you move forward with the application process.
Second.
Discussion.
I'd like to say thank you and a good job by all. And it's nice to see our new town positions actually coming around and doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as the community goes, not the individuals. We know you, so thank you. Good job by all. And I'll support this, no problem.
Great. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, the next order of business is our fiscal year 2024 budget recommended by the Advisory and Finance Committee.
So I can take this one. So as you know, we talked a lot about this year's budget. And what's in front of you this evening is just a request for the board to consider supporting the Advisory and Finance Committee's budget recommendation that's going to town meeting. As you know, the budget that was voted by the Select Board to go to Advisory and Finance is different than what A&F recommended by approximately by about $860,000. That $860,000 represents $800,000 to the school department to be moved to the salary reserve, and then $60,000 to the library to be moved to salary reserve. So in an effort to be a unified front on April 1st, the recommendation is for the board to consider supporting A&F's recommendation of $285,593,611.
Great. Any discussion with the board? And do you need a motion?
Yes.
I move we support the recommended 2024 town budget as recommended by the Advisory and Finance Committee.
We have a motion by Mr. Helm, seconded by Mr. Quinto. Discussion. All those in favor? Unanimous. The next order of business is the 10-year capital improvement plan with our finance director, Ms. Barrett.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to update you on the progress that we're making to create a 10-year capital plan. Our current bylaw requires us to look at 5 years, which we have done in the past, but now we're really looking out 10 years to try to, get a better idea of what's out there and what's coming in our future. So, let me see. Okay. It's not open. There we go. Okay. Okay, so this, we're going to go over the 10-year capital request, what that timeline has been to date and what we've done, and then we'll look at sort of a summary of those 10-year capital requests by department, and then we'll look at funding discussions and review of different options that we have, and then closing remarks. So this 10-year capital plan is what I like to call a work in progress. The town manager asked departments to submit by September 1st of last year a 10-year look at their capital requests and to especially think about large capital purchases or projects so that we can put them on our radar screen. It was quite eye-opening to see the requests in a 10-year preview. It represented a framework for us to understand where departments' thought processes are and have serious discussions on priorities, focus, and manageability. They then finalized their 2024 requests based on those reviews, and that is what was submitted to CIC for ranking on December 28th and February 14th. And those are the projects that you will see at the special and annual town meeting. But there is much more work to do, though, going forward. So this slide represents the 10 years that we looked at. The first being sort of a base year, which was fiscal '23, which had just recently been approved and funded at town meeting. The 10 years is broken down by the general fund and the enterprise funds on this slide. The general fund including all departments except for the airport, water, sewer, and solid waste, because those are enterprise funds. I then broke out on the general fund side the projects that would be likely considered for like a debt exclusion because of their high dollar amount. Looking at these numbers and not the project specifically, it represents approximately $626 million over a 10-year period. That's staggering. Again, it's a work in progress because looking at this year's, looking at it this way, there's no way that we would be able to do this in 10 years. So just keep that in mind as we go through this. This next slide, I know it's really hard to see. So we broke down the general fund department's 10-year request by department. So you'll see all the different Department of Public Works divisions. There's 9 of them. Information technology, planning, police, fire, schools, marine and environmental affairs, Center for Active Living, library, and recreation. The specific projects are categorized as like facility upgrades and major maintenance requirements, road, bridges, dams, sidewalks, environmental improvement requests, equipment and vehicle replacement, technology advancements, and master planning. This slide breaks out those projects that I mentioned earlier that are really major building renovations or replacements heading our way that include the DPW facility, fire stations, police renovations, and a new elementary school. This also includes other major projects that were in, like the DPW 10-year request, which included Water Street Promenade and Town Square. So these projects alone represented about $215 million of the total 600 that I mentioned earlier. I mentioned the elementary school project, and the number that's in here, I just got some information from the school today, and sort of if they're looking at a timeline with MSBA for a new elementary school, they'd be looking at probably sometime maybe starting construction in 2027. I got that information today, but that's sort of if their statement of interest gets accepted and they, you know, I mean, everything like gets checked off as it gets submitted. But in this actual presentation, I have it sort of being funded in fiscal '29. I threw a number in there. It wasn't a number based on any actual numbers that they were looking at. I actually threw a number in there of $50 million, which represents 50% of a $100 million school. Now, the cost of that school hopefully will be much less than that, but that's sort of the number that I threw in here for now. And as they move along in the process, we'll be able to fine-tune these numbers and the year in which, you know, it might be happening and that kind of thing. But that's what I wanted to show you there. Let's see. Okay, so more work to do. So where do we go from here? We have a lot of work to do. We will revisit and update the plan with the departments and obviously add the next year. And we'll do that over the summer months. We'll meet with all the different departments. We'll fine-tune their priorities, their timelines, the costs, and those kinds of things. And we'll add on another year to this. At the same time, what we're going to do is internally is we've been talking about this for a long time with the Capital Improvement Committee and Town Management, Select Board, Advisory and Finance, that we really sort of need to look at our capital improvements bylaw and try to make some improvements to it. It's really hard right now. Personally, I think there needs to be more involvement in the process of a committee similar to a capital improvements committee to sort of look at all these different projects going out this like 10-year period to really try to fine-tune what the town's priorities are. I think by making some tweaks in the bylaw that the committee isn't just put together just to do like a ranking process in a one-day, you know, window. You know, I mean, they meet with the departments in one day and they rank, but they get information about the projects, but I think there needs to be a little bit more time involvement in reviewing all of that, and sort of more conversations between all the different committees and boards that are involved with it.
Almost
So-
set up like the advisory subcommittee meetings.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I just think that we probably need to make some tweaks for it to really sort of make it more meaningful. Let's see. Okay, and then we'll review funding options. Oh, actually, I'm just going to read my notes here because I think this was sort of important. So with regards to this group, like my thought process is trying to get more, you know, conversations and discussions regarding it, and quite possibly maybe add to this group maybe a couple of more members, because right now there's like a selectman designee, there's an advisory and finance designee, there is a town meeting designee, there is a school committee designee, there is an at-large person. I know Steve's on the committee, so he's familiar, you know, with the makeup of this group. But what I was thinking is maybe adding a building committee representative, because where we have a lot of building needs, you know, that might be a possible addition to this committee. And then maybe someone from the Roads Advisory Committee, because of their involvement with the roads and bridges and sidewalks and all that other stuff. So those are just some of my thoughts. Let's see. And then we need to review the funding options for affordability and then incorporate those into our plan. Let's see. Oops. No, we'll go back to that one. Okay, the funding options. So one of the basic ones that we talk about and that we use a lot is free cash, because free cash is the resulting income that the town gets after it closes its fiscal year. And it's really sort of a result from budget. So we don't want to use that money necessarily on recurring operating budget items. We use them on one-time capital expenditures. So we want to continue to do that, but we want to actually sort of develop a free cash policy so that we know on an annual basis the different things that we're going to do with our free cash, depending on how much that is. So another funding source for projects, especially for the enterprise funds, is when we incorporate rates for the enterprise funds. We always talk about sort of building into those rates future capital needs. Enterprise retained earnings can be used for capital, and then betterments based on the type of project that it is. If it's a sewer project or a water project that's servicing a particular area, there's quite possibility that you can do betterments. The other area of funding that we'll look at is any special funds, stabilization funds, and then the other funds. Obviously, grants and the grant writer coordination is going to be a huge focus for sort of this 10-year capital plan. And then we'll look at any either capital exclusions from 2.5 levy or obviously borrowing either within our levy limit or borrowing that has debt exclusion component. Let's see, slide 9. So our free cash policy. So we're updating the free cash policy to derive a free cash that represents about 5% of the annual budget. Where in our policy, we're going to really reserve 10% of that free cash amount on an annual basis so that it rolls over to the following year. We're not going to spend it. We're also going to set aside the component that represents the excess motor vehicle excise that we put into the pavement management special purpose stabilization fund. We're also, in our policy, going to try to commit to increasing the general purpose stabilization fund to a 5% amount of our annual budget, and we'll do that over a period of time. Any remaining free cash, we're going to use towards capital, studies, and other one-time expenditures. So whatever remaining, we'll use for this capital plan. And based on all these numbers, we can sort of tell over like a 10-year period what that amount might look like. So it's going to look like something between like $8 and like $11 million that we're going to have on an annual basis for free cash to be used towards capital. So this spreadsheet really sort of looks at what our potential free cash certification will be, what the amount we'll put into pavement management, what the amount we would increase our general purpose stabilization fund, and then what amount would be left for capital. So this slide right here really just goes into all the different types of special revenue funds that we have that we use towards capital. The Facility Capital Maintenance Stabilization Fund. So that is one fund right now that we have been focused on putting money into. This year, when we allocated some free cash to the facility maintenance projects for both the town and the school, in our free cash, we actually had some money left of about $630,000. So we're recommending to put that away into this Facility Capital Maintenance Stabilization Fund. I'm hoping as we work on this capital plan that I mean, you want to continue to sort of put money into it, but then you also want to come up with a plan on how we're going to use that towards trying to address some of the capital maintenance issues that are in the 10-year plan. So we'll try to work those things into the plan. Other special revenue funds that are available to us, some of them aren't very significant right now, but I just want to mention them. So that Community Impact Fee Fund for Affordable Housing and Infrastructure, that comes from the 3% that is charged on short-term rentals that we receive. We probably have right now about like a little over $80,000 in that fund, but that fund will continue to grow. And 35% of that fee is put into this fund. We have our sale of real estate, which right now has probably 57 cents in it, but as we sell properties, for example, South Meadow Road, that money will go into sale of real estate. So that's a funding source for future capital. Environmental Affairs Fund, the DMEA has used that for some significant capital projects. We also have what's called the Transportation Network Fee Fund, and that fund is derived from ride share, like Ubers and Lyft and all that go through the town of Plymouth. The town receives a certain amount of money per trip or something like that. So that money comes to us, and it's to be used on like a roadway project. So right now in that fund, we probably have about maybe $35,000 to $40,000. So we'll eventually, earmark that towards one of our road projects. Revolving funds, we have several different types of revolving funds that we've used in the past for capital projects. A couple that I'll mention is waterways and sale of lots. Receipts reserved for appropriation is the ones I just mentioned. The revolving funds are, for example, the fire prevention revolving fund. That's used for some of our capital. Memorial Hall, recreation revolving. There are some other revolving accounts that we can use towards either paying for a capital project or at least funding a portion of that capital project, especially for ones, say for recreation or like Hedges Pond. They could contribute, a portion of it and then apply for other grants, and that could be the town share, that would match like a grant that they would get from somewhere else. Another item that I just put on here is just something for the future. If the town was ever had, land purchase involved or anything like that, they could use the nuclear mitigation fund. Another funding source for projects that are either open space, recreation, historic, or housing. The Community Preservation Fund is a funding source that a town department could apply for. And then also a funding source is any surplus article or bond proceeds that are left in like an older article that we had some money left in. We do that a lot. You'll see at this town meeting that we had some money left in a lot of smaller projects, and we're transferring all that money into a school project, and we're doing one for IT. So this next slide, I just want to go over the grant writer coordination that I talked about earlier. So this is really significant. So since Tiffany's, the grant writer, has been moved into the finance department office, we meet, on a regular basis, and I'm going to have her sit in and be very involved in this capital planning process. It's really important for her to see what types of capital projects the departments are looking for and be able to communicate with those departments, help them, research grants and other things that are out there. So she'll review requests, she'll work with those departments on researching those grants, she'll develop application narratives and components of their grant applications, and she'll manage the application process. A perfect example of the work that she's done, was this project that she's working on with the schools. That's huge. If we can get a higher reimbursement for this school project versus an MSBA or something, I think that's really very significant. And even, like they said earlier, the work that they've done on this project, even if they don't get the grant or they get a smaller amount, all the work that goes into developing the narratives and the components and everything that goes into these grants, those items can be used in other grant applications. So a lot of that work, will already be done, so that's really significant. Then we come to borrowing. So borrowing is something that we have used on an annual basis over the years to fund a lot of our capital projects. I'm just going to go over what our current status is for long-term borrowing, what's authorized and unissued, our current short-term borrowing, what the town's debt limits are. We'll talk about borrowing inside the levy or outside the levy, and then any debt or capital exclusions. So what this slide shows you is just our current debt status long-term outstanding as of June 30th of 2022. So in total, we have outstanding principal of $204.8 million. And it's represented, when we borrow money under Mass General Laws, different sections. Chapter 44, Section 7 are items that are within our debt limit, and then Chapter 44, Section 8 are items that are outside our debt limit. So that's where our stand right there. This is what's authorized and unissued. And what this means is these are projects that have been voted at town meeting. Town meeting has authorized them over the years, sort of within probably the last 4 to 5 years of the projects that are sitting here. Some of them are in progress. Some of them have anticipated grant reductions, so we'll end up not borrowing the $81 million that's authorized because we're going to get grant reimbursement towards some of these projects. So the remaining authorized is $66 million. And then what it means is just we haven't issued long-term yet. So for example, the fire stations for West Plymouth and Manomet are included in this number. They're in progress, but we just haven't borrowed long-term yet. We've done some short-term borrowing for them. So that's what this slide it shows you, is what, as of June 30th of 2022, this is what was outstanding for our short-term borrowing based on all those projects that have been authorized. So this totals about $4 million, and it's just various projects for the general fund, the fire stations, the school roofs, some sewer debt, and on the water side, one of the major projects there is the Manomet pipe zone upgrades that actually just went out to bid. The prices came in, and they came in much less than we had expected, so that was good news. This next slide, because we talk about debt, and I know debt can sometimes be scary, and people don't like to borrow money, but it is definitely one of the funding sources for the town to be able to do a lot of our projects. The reason why I wanted to show you these next few slides is that just wanted to sort of give you an idea of borrowing really isn't, it's not that bad. It's really a good resource for us to be able to use. So right now, we're obviously in interest rates are rising, and you'll see that with your mortgage rates. We're also seeing that with our own borrowing rates. But the slide on the left here shows you the 20-year bond rate, and we are close, right now the rates that are out there are close to like the 10-year average and much less than the 23-year average. The rates are coming off of historic lows. So, and I say that because I'm not sure if we'll ever see those sort of historic lows again. It was really, I think, because of COVID and all the things that they were doing. So right now, the rates are sort of getting into that level of that average where they sort of should be. The list on the right, and I know it's really hard to see, this has been Plymouth's experience in the market over the same 23-year period. And if you look at this individually based on the rates that you see on the left-hand side, Plymouth has always done very well. We're rated better than a AA2 or a AA. We're a AA1 and a AA plus. So we usually tend to borrow at a better rate than the AAs. And it really all depends on what type of, how the bond issue is set up. If it pays off principal versus having like a mortgage payment. Because if you do a mortgage payment loan, that's level debt, so it's the same principal and interest payment every year. If you do level principal, then you're paying off more of the, principal before the interest isn't as much. So the debt sort of goes down like that way. So Plymouth over the years has done really, really well. Our rates have done good. There's a notation for 3 bond issues that we did during this time frame that we actually ended up refunding, so we reissued them, sort of refinanced them, just like you would do with your mortgage, and we were able to save the town several millions of dollars, which was awesome. This next slide shows you what
Lynn,
our... Yes.
Lynn, sorry. So, can you go back to that prior slide?
Yes.
So that reissue was $41 million in June of '21?
Yep, that was a 2009 bond issue that was reissued in 2011.
All right, so the true interest cost is about 1.4%?
The true interest cost on the 41.5 million, that was 3.9 to...
I'm looking at that third column, true interest cost, the bottom number, I'm rounding up to 1.4.
Oh, the bottom one you're looking at. Yes, okay.
Is that accurate? That's
Yes. Yes, that's
So
accurate.
True interest cost, 1.4 on a bond,
That was 41 point
40
something
million.
million.
And is
yes.
that's where we saved the $1 million by, is that where we saved the multiple $1 million with that remortgaging right there?
That was a refunding of, yeah, so you'll see refunded June 9th of 2021. That was number 3. So we did a bond issue in
Lynn, can you-
2011 for 41.6 million. We refunded it in 2021, and we were able to save, yes.
All
And
right.
it was primarily on the school debt, so we were able to decrease that debt exclusion too.
All right, thank you.
Okay, what this slide just shows you is what our debt limits are. So Mass General Laws dictates what your debt limit is, and you have to stay within those limits. So under our normal debt limit, it's 5% of our most recent state's equalized valuation. So the equalized valuation in 2022 was 13.6 billion. So our debt limit is 682.4 million. When you look at our outstanding debt plus our short-term debt, that's 208.9 million. So we're well within our normal debt limit. And when they look at the debt limit, they actually don't even look at what's outside the debt limit. So our outside the debt limit number is about 97.9 million. So we're well within our debt limit. So we would never have an issue of being able to borrow more money. Your normal debt limit, you just need local authority, town meeting vote by 2/3. If we were to ever, and I don't ever see this happening because I would never recommend it, is going above your double debt limit, which is the 10%. But you would need state approval required to be able to do that. But we're well within our debt limits. We have room. So this is what I was talking about, where the blue line is our debt service that's falling off. And I'm primarily looking at the general fund here versus the enterprise funds, because we look at each enterprise fund individually as to what they could afford. But in the general fund, we have a lot of debt coming off the books. And then with our debt policy being 6 to 8% of our general fund, the red line represents 6% of an annual general fund that would increase approximately 4%. So we have room, like the room between the blue line and the red line is debt that we can fit in there. So we'll be using that for the current authorized and unissued that we have right now, but like going forward down the road, you'd continually authorize new debt to sort of fill that in. So that was really the presentation. My closing remarks, again, is just this is a work in progress. We update it every year. We'll try to incorporate some new improvements, and I'm going to be bringing back to you some updated financial policies based on a lot of the stuff that I talked about. We'll be creating a capital planning policy with this, and then also looking to improve our capital improvement bylaw. So if you have any questions, I'm available.
Anyone have any questions? John?
Just one, I think I already know the answer, but Derek, I participated in the CIC for the first time ever. Betty had always told me that I didn't know what I was missing, but we did that. Anyways, we conducted that exercise, and you, I don't know if it was you or the two of you, instituted a new policy where basically there was really no competition. I think Lynn said, hey, this is what we can afford, and the department heads brought forward that number. We just ranked them from there, so nobody really got left out in the cold. As long as you're around, is that basically how we're going to approach that going forward?
Yeah, so again, as Lynn pointed out, this is a work in progress, and, I think you guys are all accustomed to the prior way to the CIC ranking process, where there'd be, upwards of 50, 60 projects that were presented in CIC. We go through its priority ranking system. We went through that process internally, both Lynn and Brad and myself, and we kind of whittled it down to just bring forward the projects that we knew, one, were a top priority of the department. So it's like, for example, the Bartlett Bridge, right? That was a top priority. So we knew that was very important, so we want to advance that. And again, using our left and right limits of what can we actually afford, so that those are the projects that were in front of CIC. So I think we'll continue to use that as a guiding light moving forward. But as Lynn pointed out, we recognize that the existing CIC process probably needs to be pulled apart and put back together.
I think, and maybe what I could add is maybe what we're looking at is maybe having some engagement of CIC in that process when we look at those requests, the 10-year requests, and that kind of thing. And obviously with the departments, their priorities and really what they can manage. Because some of the requests, at least personally, I think the request was a lot, and I'm like, you can't possibly do all that in 1 year. Like, you physically are not capable of doing that, so those kinds of things. So those are the discussions that we had, sort of going back and forth and trying to get them to refocus and prioritize and that kind of thing.
I know it's a work in progress, but, huge step in the right direction. Thank God we took it from 5 to 10 years out. And I do love the fact that, the school side, in using this example on a potential new school in North Plymouth, okay, perfect scenario, shovel in the ground in 27. When are you going to go out to bond? 29. Plug in $50 million. I mean, we should be doing that for, a lot more stuff. So, especially the public knows that what we're up against.
Yeah, and I think there are going to be decisions that are going to have to be made with those larger projects. Are we going to commit to recommending another debt exclusion, for some of these major projects? And I know that's a big pill to swallow, I think, for some people.
Okay. Mr. Quintel?
Thank you. Nice job to all. I have a question. It's like a scenario, if you will. Say we have a large parcel of land's available, and when I say large parcel, like over 1,000 acres, 1,500 acres, comes up, and there may have been a power plant there at one time, just to use an example. And, just say the price is 40 million, 50 million. Is that anywhere in these scenarios that you're putting up here? And the only reason I bring this up, they're probably not. But I think it's something that we should start to shed some light on, as that all plays out. And nobody knows how that's going to play out. But we know it's going to take some money, at least if I'm guessing. I'm going to say it's going to.
Yeah.
And, should the CPC be submitting applications to the town for now? Should we, advise them and joint meet with them and tell them, look, for the next year or two, I think we need to cool it and put some money away. So if the opportunity does arise and we need to come up with funds, and we just saw what we saw there, I'm just being realistic now.
Right, so I
Because-
think, to answer your question regarding, is it in here? The purchase of that land is not in here, the dollar amount
Right.
in the next 10 years. But there is sort of some of the funding sources that we could quite possibly used for that purchase are in there, like the Nuclear Mitigation Fund, CPA fund, providing that some of the land would be set aside for open space, you know what I mean, those kinds of things. And borrowing, you know.
So when there's town administrators, you think that these conversations should start as far as the town goes? I mean, should we recommend to CPC that, you know, let's tread easy, if not, nothing? I mean, I'm not afraid to say that, unless it's really critical to what they're trying to do. And, you know, the grant writers should be ready to write, see what's out there. And because when it comes, I think it's gonna come pretty fast, you know, if I was a guessing person. And I don't want anybody to say that the board is not being proactive, you know, they're being reactive, so which is why I'm bringing them up. And I know you don't have all the answers, and I'm not trying to, you know, put you on the spot anywhere. But, you know, please.
I can jump in on that one. So I agree with Mr. Quintal. You know, I think we should start thinking about that land, you know, if the board so desires. You know, last summer, we went through a goal-setting process. We didn't identify this issue as one of our goals. This June, maybe late May, early June, we'll look at the goals, the ones that we accomplished in FY23, and we'll go through that process again. So I think that this is something that the board should consider putting on a future goal, because once the board makes that strategic decision that, you know, they are intentional on acquiring that land, that gives us, when I say us, Lynn and Brad and I and others, the ability to go have those conversations with CPC and say the select board has a goal of acquiring that 1,500 acres, and we need you to be a part of that process. So I would suggest that, you know, at the earliest, we should start having that conversation in June.
Madam Chairman, you think we should have a docket item or get the opinion of the board? What do you think, Harry? I mean, as a board, Charlie, John? I mean, and I don't want to pick on the CPC because there's other sources of funding, but it just comes to mind that you bring it to light now rather than when you actually need the money. I mean, we know we're going to need money. So rather than it be like Sandwich Road, excuse me, and not, you know, we missed this, we missed that. So if we put it out there now, we know it's coming. I mean, maybe all the capital free cash money shouldn't be spent every year. Maybe we should sock some of that away. I mean, I don't know what the number is, but that's why we have the finance director and administrators.
No, the point's well taken. So whether it is free cash or CPC and the Forest Legacy Grant, which could be upwards of $20 to $30 million. So, and we have a grant writer now that could be working with community partners on some of that stuff. So again, you know, once the board gives us direction, and I would say the best way to do that is through the goal-setting process that we'll do annually, then that gives us the green light to go ahead and pull all those pieces together.
Okay, I'll almost finish, Sean. And then if we do go for a new elementary school in North Plymouth, we'll probably have at least two that the school department will not need, at least I'm assuming. What will we do with those properties? Will we sell them? Will we do them for housing, for elderly or affordable housing, or housing for our veterans? I mean, this whole thing needs to be planned out. And, you know, if we don't have the money, I sat there on the last override vote, if you will, for the two schools and the senior center. And if it's done right and it's done collectively, and the community knows you need it, I mean, hey, it could be a fire station. I don't want to say it's going to be the school. It could be a school and a fire station, you know, or a police station. But, you know, if it's done right and presented properly, then it's in the community's hands to make the decision. And, you know, they made the last one the largest override in, you know, I think it was the Commonwealth. It was big, and, you know, we got something to show for it, so. And it falls off after that when it's all paid, but I don't want to get there beforehand, you know. So I just want to bring those to attention in the goal setting, and I'd rather see everybody know up front that, you know, this is our goal and put some money aside, because it's not going to fall out of the sky in a few years. So if we're all about future planning, then we need to do that too, I believe, so.
John?
Yeah, just following up on the 1,500 acres, which I refer to as the white whale. So the constitutional rights or the property rights currently reside with a major international corporation, which is engaging in the decommissioning of the plant. And ultimately, if they want to move forward by themselves and develop it, they have every right to do that under, the current bylaws and rules and regulations of this community. If they want to partner with somebody else and move forward, they can obviously do that. But I agree with Mr. Quintal. As long as I sit here, and even if I don't sit here, it is one of the most important things that if we ever get a chance, a bite at the apple, we have to get that to town meeting. And we don't know what the price is, but there has been a start. As Lynn mentioned, there are a few different funding mechanisms up on the board, and I think that we have certain nonprofits in the community that can bring other monies into play, and I do know that roughly 5 years ago, there was a quasi-presentation made to the board between current department head of DME and an individual who was in charge of economic development at the time, and it was a pretty solid proposal, but I'm completely on board with whatever we can do to position the community to be in a stronger financial position so if and when we get the bite at the apple.
I know we keep talking about the 1,500 acres, and as far as I'm concerned, I think they should give it to us. So I'll just put that right out there. We are the host community, and granted, if there are nonprofits and monies, as you say, John, they need to come forward and let us know where they're at. So we can do that as we negotiate with Holtec now. So, okay. Well, thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is the proposed 2023 outdoor dining fee schedule.
Did you want to take it? Okay. So this was before you 2 weeks ago, and I know that the board wanted us to go back and make sure that we engage the Outdoor Dining Committee and the Downtown Business Association. Mr. Brothers went ahead and did that. He met with the Business Association, explained the fee structure, and then followed up with the Outdoor Dining Committee with Lee Hartman, again, explaining the fee structure. So the restaurants that have applied are well aware of the new fee structure, and we haven't received any other feedback to date. So what's before you is a renewal fee of $2,000 and a new restaurant fee of $2,500.
Second.
Okay, so staying on outdoor dining, the setup will begin on April 10th. Normally, we try to start a little bit earlier than that, but given tonight's vote, will be delayed by about 7 to 10 days. I just want to remind folks that the vote by mail application deadline is May 15th, although we're some time away. We have already received about 150 applications. Last year, we received 16,000, so we expect another large turnout as far as vote by mail. So again, May 15th is the deadline for that. Tonight, Ms. Barrett and others met for the first time for the Elderly and Disabled Committee. So their first meeting was tonight. They're going to go ahead, put a plan together so that when folks start to donate towards the Elderly and Disabled tax fund, we can go ahead and distribute those dollars. I want to bring up some work that the town clerk is spearheading. There are a number of board and committee members that we are now requiring to take the open meeting law. It's actually a requirement by the state. And in addition to that, all town officials and both paid town officials and volunteer officials will have to take the ethics training. So these aren't new laws, but our town clerk is now going to be pushing to ensure that we are complying with the statutes. If you go to the courtroom, you will see some enhanced audio and visual products over there. We've received a number of complaints that the courtroom's audio, in particular, the sound quality is poor. And so working with PAC TV and our IT department, they've been able to add some newer technology that we're expecting will enhance the audio-visual experience. So I'm still working on that, but we're expecting that to be a much easier place to have future meetings. And I want to commend Lee Hartman, our planning director. He actually worked with Cape Cod Community College. They offered the space for free. Lee Hartman and his team went to Cape Cod Community College for the first time last week, and they'll be doing it once a week for the next 3 weeks, where they're doing free GIS training for staff. So as you know, GIS is a big piece of software that most municipalities use, both on the DPW, fire and police can use it, planning can use it. So he's actually conducting a free training down at the Cape Cod Community College for all of our staff who are interested. Just as a reminder, this coming Friday, nomination papers are due at the town clerk's office. So again, this Friday, 5 p.m., nomination papers are due. So the town clerk will be there again until 5 o'clock. We plan to close on South Meadow this week, so $1.2 million will go to the CLR Real Estate into that account, although it's 56 cents as of tonight. And then I wanted to let folks know, the question was asked today about the Symes House RFP. So that RFP will be issued on April 6th. There'll be a walkthrough held on April 17th, and then all RFPs are due on April 28th. The board, a couple weeks back, talked a lot about graffiti. You know, you've heard me talk a lot about graffiti. We had a resident talk about graffiti a couple weeks back. So since then, we pulled together a graffiti task force made up of folks from Park Plymouth, the DPW, the police department, and the planning department, amongst others, are going to convene, have a conversation on what we can do to try to eliminate graffiti in the community and try to find those folks that are responsible for ruining our buildings. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. in this room, the Board of Health will have an informational session on the dangers of tritium in the water. So the Board of Health has convened a bunch of experts who will talk about what health effects tritium has if someone were to consume it through some ingestion through the water. So those that are interested in what Holtex, contaminated water, could do to the bay, please join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. And then last, I just want to bring the board up to speed as to what's going on in the sewer interceptor project on Water Street. So we've talked a lot about it in the past. On March 7th, we were informed that there was some shifting of the soils. There were some foundations that were cracked. You see some sidewalks are cracked, the streets cracked, walls are cracked. We believe it may have taken place due to some settlement, due to the construction that was taking place on Water Street. All that construction has ceased since that date. It still has not restarted, although you may have seen some work taking place on Water Street. Most of that was water work. We were replacing valves, but no sewer work has taken place since March 7th. We're still working with the contractor, Northern Contractor. They are responsible for putting a new plan of action forward so that our engineering team, alongside of environmental partners who is our resident engineering, can review that plan of action and then give them the green light to move forward. Part of that plan of action is to sink wells on Water Street so that we can properly manage any groundwater in the area. The company to sink those wells won't be here until April 3rd. We're expecting that to take probably about 3 to 5 days to sink those wells. So the earliest, what's being projected right now, is that we may be able to restart the project around April 10th. We've looked at the contract. The contract allows for the contractor to work until June 30th. Their original goal was to complete the project by May 31st, by Memorial Day. Clearly, we're not going to hit that target, so it still remains to be seen as to when we will restart the project and when we will suspend the project for the summer and then restart the project in the fall. So more to come on the dates, but I wanted folks to be aware of kind of what's happening at the present time down on Water Street. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Any questions for the town manager? Okay. Next is Select Board Open Discussion, New Business, Letters, Old Business. Mr. Mahoney.
Derek, the Water Conservation Committee came before us months ago, and they had 3 recommendations. And I know one of them was going to take a significant amount of time from town staff, because one of their recommendations was to basically take the fees up on heavy users during the summer months to, in theory, drive use down. So I didn't know where we were with that. And was that something that was going to be available if and when the rates were set in May or June, or is that not in the queue yet?
Right, so I don't think we're going to have a recommendation for this rate-setting period. We did, the DPW did receive a grant for about $60,000 to do a new hydraulic modeling of our water system. And part of that is to look at conservation and any mitigation programs we can put forward through that program. And then on top of that, it would propose some type of new fee structure for connecting to the town's water system. So that grant, we just received that grant about, I want to say about 5-6 weeks ago. So the study has already began. I don't anticipate that study having been complete by the time we set our rates for this year, but certainly we can use that data moving forward for future rate setting.
Okay, thank you. Next, Handicap State Decommissioning Committee, which I have the honor of chairing every 60 days. So the meeting was last night. I thanked Holtec during the meeting for allowing our, your request was accommodated, where they're allowing Mr. Gould to go down during the sampling, which I believe is going to happen in the first or second week of April. And they fully expect, the state officials got up and testified that they fully expect those results to be in by mid-May. So through the chair, Mr. Town Manager, the next meeting is in this room on May 22nd, Monday night. I would just request a increased security presence.
What is that date again?
Yes.
What is that date one more time?
May 22nd. Memorial Day is the 29th. Okay?
I've got a question.
Mr. Helm.
I have a question about that. Mr. Mahoney, why are you requesting an increased security presence?
Sometimes when we get to the public participation part of these meetings, some of the members can get a little rambunctious. And this has been a signature event in the timeline of this committee, the sampling. The state is sending down a delegation. Mr. Gould is going to join the delegation. He will just be an observer. They will take samples back to one lab. There are only a handful of labs in the United States that are qualified, that can handle testing this radiological, that have the certain licensing and the permits to handle this material. And this has been a very sensitive one, and depending on where the results came in, that could influence the behavior of the crowd one way or the other, if you know what I'm saying. And I've had other panel members request this, so that's why I'm bringing it up. And then, Madam Chair, one more. Mr. Quintal mentioned 1,500 acres earlier in the CPC, and there was a bear here earlier with Ms. Rushforth. And the CPC a couple months ago, we had the summit. And the CPC met in a regular meeting prior to the summit, and Ms. Rushforth advised the committee, in her opinion, that when we left that first summit, there should be a commitment between the chair of that committee and Mr. Brindisi as the location, the time, and, you know, when that next part 2 of that summit would be. So that's imperative that we get that done. We could put on the agenda the discussion that Mr. Quintal brought up, but there are some other issues going on, and I do have colleagues on that committee that do want to weigh in. They felt it was best during part 1 to sit there and listen. Suggestions brought forth by the finance director and others, and they wanted to get in the seat on the second one and just voice their opinion as to, you know, the pros and cons to everything they heard at part 1. And I just think that we need to follow up on that.
Derek, I have actually received quite a few calls regarding this second CPC meeting, so I would like for you to schedule something for next week and ask CPC to attend. And then, so we can get, you know, I think there's a lot going on with CPC, especially because of the information that we've heard and how we're going to go. But there are a lot of unanswered questions from the first time, and I have a lot of residents wanting to know, and board members that want to know what's going on. So, Mr. Cohan, if you're watching, please make time next week to meet with CPC and have a second meeting to answer some questions.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. I'm in the process of preparing a formal application to CPC to help fund further analysis of the lead cabins and the potential contamination in the soil around those lead cabins. My hope is that the CPC would consider using admin funds so that we could further mitigate any hazards that are over there.
Great subject for our next meeting. Meaning CPC, or CPC's next meeting, which Mr. Mahoney is the liaison for. Any other, Mr. Helm?
I feel that Mr. Mahoney actually he brought up a good, he mentioned something that I think we need to follow up on. A few months ago, the Water Conservation Committee did make a presentation here. They had several suggestions that they wanted the Select Board to consider approving. I'm concerned that we are in danger of letting too much time go by, and I would like to see it to be an agenda item at a future meeting so that we don't forget about it, because they did do a lot of work, they did make suggestions, and we do need to consult with them.
Sure. Okay, and anyone else? So we will be adjourning from open session and going back into executive session. So do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Quintal, seconded from Mr. Blutzer. All those in favor? It's unanimous. See you in a couple weeks, folks. Yeah. Oh, yeah.